Good day, Mom. I'm Jamaica Maghanoy, BSed 2, major in English, batch 5. Our topic today is about sentence structures. There are 4 types of sentence structures. But before we will discuss these 4, we will discuss first about the difference of the phrase and the clause. A phrase is a group of words that contain a subject or a verb but not both, while the clause is a group of words that include a subject and a verb. For example, he runs. He run. There is a subject which is the he and the verb which is the run. Thus, he run is a clause. There are 2 types of clause. The first one is the independent clause or the main clause. It can stand on its own as a sentence, has a subject, a verb, and has a complete thought. For example, the master of his own destiny. The second example is will be arriving tomorrow. With these examples, you can't understand it already because it has a complete thought, meaning it does not need any subordinating clauses or phrases. The next type of clause is the dependent clause. It contains a subject and a verb, but it has not a complete thought. It does not have a complete thought. For example, because I woke up late this morning, meaning it lacks something. You cannot understand it. You wake up late this morning and then what next? Thus, it needs a subordinate clause for you to understand this sentence. Now, we are done discussing about the phrase and the clause. So let's move on to the types of sentence structures. So there are 4 types of sentence structures. These are the simple sentence, the compound sentence, the complex sentence, and the compound complex sentence. So let's start first with the simple sentence. So the simple sentence contains one independent clause. So we all know now what is a clause. It has a verb and a subject. For example, I kicked the ball. In this sentence, there is one subject and one verb, which is kick. So I kick the ball. So this is an example of a simple sentence. So let's move on to the next type of sentence structure, which is the compound sentence. A compound sentence has 2 or more independent clauses. So, for example, I kicked the ball and it hit Jane. In this example, we can see 2 independent clauses. The I kicked the ball and it hit Jane. So these 2 are the independent clauses. So in a compound sentence, each main clauses are connected by either a comma or a conjunction. For example, these conjunctions are and, or, so, yet, but, for, and etc. And the third type of sentence structure is the complex sentence. So, a complex sentence has one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. So, these independent clauses can stand on its own, while the dependent clauses cannot stand on its own and has not a complete thought, as we have discussed earlier about the types of clauses. So, for example, Tom cried because the ball hit him. We can see in this example that these italicized words are the dependent clauses, which is the subordinating clauses that has no complete thought. Because Tom cried, Tom cried. We can understand it even if it's just this, Tom cried. While because the ball hit him, we cannot understand it. It lacks. It needs a supporting detail for us to understand it. Thus, this is the dependent clauses. And the last type of sentence structures, which is the fourth one, is the compound complex sentence. So, a compound complex sentence has two or more independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. So, for example, Tom cried because the ball hit him and I apologized immediately. So in this example, we can see that the italicized words are the dependent clause. And the Tom cried and the I apologized immediately are the independent clauses, which we have, as what we've discussed earlier, that independent clauses has a subject and a verb and a complete thought. I apologized immediately. We can't understand it even if it's just these words, this group of words. Thus, compound complex sentence has two independent clauses and at least one dependent clauses. To put it simply, or to summarize the types of sentence structures, a simple sentence has only one independent clause, while the compound sentence has two independent clauses, while the complex sentence has one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses, meaning there are one dependent clause and two or more dependent clauses, while the compound complex sentence has two or more independent clauses and at least one dependent clauses. And now, for us to understand more about the sentence structures, I have prepared a group activity for today. I have two sets of sentences here, and each group will classify these sentences to which group they belong. Either if they are in a simple sentence, if either they are a simple sentence, a compound sentence, a complex sentence, or a compound complex sentence. So now, assuming that the students are done answering the activity, let's now check their work. For the simple sentence, he organized his sources by theme. Let's not forget that a simple sentence has a simple verb and a simple subject. So the subject here is the he, while the verb is organized. So this is correct. This sentence is a simple sentence. Now let's move on to the compound sentence. For the compound sentence, let's not forget that the compound sentence has two independent clauses and is connected by conjunctions. So let's look if these sentences are correct. They studied APE rules for many hours, but they realized there was still much to learn. So these clauses are conjoined by but. The conjunction here is but, and there are two independent clauses, which are they studied APE rules for many hours and they realized there was still much to learn. So this is correct. This sentence is a compound sentence. So the second one, she completed her literature review and she created her reference list. So these clauses, so the first clause here is she completed her literature review and is connected by a conjunction and. And the second clause is she created her reference list. So the first clause here is, I will underline it, is this, and the conjunction is the and the second clause is that she created her reference list. So this sentence is a compound sentence. So the third one, he organized his sources by theme. Then he updated his reference list. So this sentence has a conjunction then. So the first clause is he organized his sources by theme, and the second one is he updated his reference list. So this is a compound sentence because it has two independent clauses and is connected by a conjunction then. So now let's proceed to the complex sentence. So the first sentence is they studied APA rules for many hours as they were so interesting. So in this the complex sentence, as we have discussed, has one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. And now for the last one, the compound complex sentence. So the sentence is she completed her literature review, but she still needs to work on her methods section even though she finished her methods course last year. So in this sentence, there is a conjunction but. So the conjunction is but. And the first clause is she completed her literature review. So this is an independent clause. And the second clause is she still needs to work on her method section. So this is also an independent clause which can stand on its own. And the dependent clause is even though she finished her methods course last year. So this is the dependent clause. So this sentence is correct. It is a compound complex sentence. So the second one, although he organized his sources by theme, he decided to arrange them chronologically and he carefully followed the MEAL plan for organization. So these are the examples of the types of the sentence structures. So now, for us to understand more about the sentence structures, I have a worksheet here and an exercise to identify sentences by structure. So this worksheet serves as an assignment to be passed next meeting. So that is all our lesson for today about the sentence structures. I hope you learned something about our lesson. Until next time, goodbye.